So here we are in Euro Truck Simulator 2, and going to talk a little bit about why I think it's very much like a flight sim in many ways, and certain kinds of flight sim fans like myself would really enjoy this sim. So a couple of reasons, many reasons actually. It's very procedural. It's not just like an open world with no physics like some fantasy game. It tries to model a real world environment, which we can see out the window here, and the physics of a truck, and then the human machine interface by which you control that machine. So that's something that flight sims and this truck sim have very much in common. They both have realistic scenery. They're trying to depict the real world the way you would see it as you travel through it. So that's something they do. They both do. Just working out where am I going. Looking at my iPhone on the virtual screen there. They both have cockpits. So I'm in my physical cockpit with controllers, instrument panels, data's coming from the sim, and in front of me is a pretty big 85-inch screen set about a good metre plus, just I'd say a metre away from me, which really gives you the feeling you're looking into the real world out of your cockpit. Now I could drive a lot of this in fixed view, and which I'm in now, and I use my eyes to look around. I can see both the revision mirrors. You won't see anything at the moment because there's no light in this part of the countryside, but I can see faint images in the cars behind me. So there you go, yeah. Flight sims and truck sims, they've got a lot in common. Because I was about 10 years behind the curtain, cops blinking their headlights at me for some reason. Why? Because I got my high beam on. That's why. It's cool. It's cool. Yeah, no, the customer expects delivery very soon. Get rid of that. Okay, back to high beam. Pretty heavy load. We're not going to go any faster than this with this engine. So yeah, I can use almost the same hot hands here. Of course, I've added a steering wheel, which probably could use, to fly older high beam types of aircraft, which is something I'm going to explore, because that would be pretty cool. Flying with an F-16 fighter stick in some large body jet, especially the older ones or old prop aircraft, is not that realistic. Of course, the steering wheel will not simulate elevator control, but that's all right. I'm just trying to think while I'm driving a truck, which is not easy. That's another thing about this sim, which is like flight sims. It really demands your attention. You take your eyes off the road for a second or so and you're in big trouble. And there's, as we're seeing other vehicles moving around, you're not alone. And this is where Euro Truck Sim really has a lot in common with the best of flight sims that we've seen over the decades, last 40 years or so. In that it simulates a very dynamic world, and it doesn't have a lot of scripted events. It has a lot of entities in it, trucks and cars, people even, and they're following AI goals. They've got to drive from A to B, and they've got to drive within very set constraints. They've got to stay on the road, they've got to follow the road rules most of the time, not always. You get people pulling out in front of you when they shouldn't sometimes, so there's unpredictable elements, kind of the human factors model. And that's what a good flight sim does too. I mean, I find the sandbox type of flight sims very boring, and I've spent a lot of, probably hundreds of hours in them over the years, but I always gravitate back to the ones that have lots of real world or unpredictable or dynamic events going on, whether it's SVGA Harrier back in the early 90s or Prepare 3D, Microsoft Flight Sim, that line of sims these days. They're very dynamic. We've got chat. Now, something I could add in this, I suppose, is CV radio chat. That would be another element. And I guess they'll get round to that eventually. But for the moment, they've created a really immersive experience, which, as an avid long-term flight simmer, I am really enjoying, and I didn't think I would. But in many respects, it's very much like flying in a flight sim. So, enjoy.